Good evening. Hello. Check, check, check. Yeah.
That clock is a little behind. Okay, let's call to order the regularly scheduled Lake Worth Beach CRA meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, and the time is exactly 6 o'clock. Emily, please do the roll call.
Miss Ann Fairfax. Here. Miss Donna Kerner. Here. Mr. Brennan Lynch.
Here.
Miss Carla Blockson.
Here.
Mr. Daniel Morgan.
Here.
Please note Miss Caroline Shamshi-Basha and Miss Leah Furch are not present.
Thanks, Emily. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any agenda additions, deletions, or reordering? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Any comments from the public? On to the consent agenda. I'll look for a motion and a second.
Motion to go.
We have a motion to move the consent. You have a second?
I'll second that.
And a second. All in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We have one approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, July 11th minutes.
Thanks, Donna. Do we have a second? And Daniel for a second. All in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And we have a presentation from Ride Circuit, your electric shuttle.
Yeah, so Jason's here. He's going to do a brief presentation and kind of tell you a little bit about the technology and what they do. And then I thought the board could, whether we wanted like a route or we wanted door to door, et cetera, because we had talked about it at prior meetings. Take it away.
Thank you. Is there somebody who can go through the slides? Oh. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jason Bagley with Circuit, and thank you all for having me tonight. Happy to speak about our services. Circuit, we are a national first and last mile transportation company. Based in Fort Lauderdale. We have operations in West Palm Beach and all over South Florida, as well as New York, Northeast, Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., Southern California, Texas, and just launched in Bellevue, Washington as well. So what our focus is getting rid of single occupancy vehicles. We know that they're bad for cities. They're contributing to congestion, to greenhouse gas emissions, and about 35% of vehicle trips are under 2 miles. That is the area that we're focused on. Transit traditionally has looked at the longer the trip, the more money that you make. However, all public transit systems are operating at a loss. So we found a niche that has kind of been overlooked and a really important piece, that last mile. We work with Brightline and a lot of train systems connecting to PalmTran, to Broward County Transit, a lot of those longer routes and enabling people to get there. Also, seniors, a lot of times that would have 2 cars or families in general that would have 2 cars. Many of our areas, we give them a reason that they can get down to 1 vehicle and have a reliable transportation option to get to shopping, entertainment, dining, doctor's office, pharmacies, and just regular everyday trips. Maybe. I don't know if the batteries died or. Yep, there we go. Again, last mile's the big problem. Our focus is on 0 to 2 miles. So typically too far to walk and too short to drive. Obviously with the heat that we've had the last several months, but really it feels like the last week or so. Not too enjoyable to be out walking at 2 p.m. So those are a lot of our trips. People that would Uber as well is another thing that we replace. So typically our service is free, but we do have fares in some markets, usually $1 to $2. And it gives some buy-in to the user. So what would traditionally be a $10 to $15 Uber ride might be a $2 trip. So paid rides are a good way to get some buy-in from the actual user. We can also cap that. So if there's a family of 4, we could do $2 per person, but a cap of $5 for the entire group. And mobility options are limited. So scooters, we've all seen many cities that have come and gone. I'm all for them, but I think they need to be done responsibly, and they're not for everybody. Autonomous vehicles are nice and get a lot of attention, but they're not really ready to navigate through city traffic. We're close with a lot of those companies, and we speak with them about future state and how we could work with them. But we have a good solution that's ready today and has been deployed for over 12 years here in South Florida. Again, the ride-hailing companies are expensive, and you are bringing in drivers from all over to areas for an event, and they flood the area, add more congestion. Our drivers are all W-2 employees. We always look to hire local. They act as ambassadors as well as drivers, and they can promote the area. And then the about town buses and trolleys, large fixed route vehicles that clog up the streets. And if you take a look, there's rarely more than 2 or 3 people in a 20 to 30 passenger bus. So what we offer, again, a turnkey electric and shared solution. We have everything built out, full suite management, W-2 employees, the insurance and permits. We also have a grant writers on staff that can go and look for potential additional funding sources. We have the fare collection as well as ad sales, so we can advertise local businesses as well as national brands on the vehicles to reduce the net cost to a funding partner. We have the parking and charging infrastructure built out that we bring with us. We have our own proprietary app that's on demand. It can also do fixed stops, so we can create as many locations as you want within a zone, and people would have to get picked up or dropped off within those locations. But our sweet spot is the door-to-door service within a geo-fenced coverage area. And what that creates is efficiency. There's cost savings there. We do pool most of our rides. In general, it's about 35% of our rides we pool. Again, just for efficiency, less cars needed to move more people. Sustainability focus, our entire fleet is all electric. So we don't only have the neighborhood electric vehicles that are often referred to as golf carts, but we also have Ford Transit electric vans. We have Teslas and every other type of EV sedan. Again, job creation and quality control, always look to hire local. And then the control and data is how we analyze how the service is working and how we refine and make it better. And we do that with our stakeholders. And the riders love it. So we're moving about 70,000 people a month in South Florida across all of our markets. Fort Lauderdale, for example, about a year ago, we were moving 3,000 people a month. We were self-funding that with just advertising. Brightline came on board, and they've contracted us for all 5 of their stations. And then shortly after that, the city came on and said that they would do a pilot with us and add an additional 8 vehicles. So the last few months, we've moved over 22,000 people a month since March, including June and July, which things typically would tail off in the summer months. But with those high numbers, we're still missing about another 10,000 riders, meaning we need more capacity, more vehicles are needed. Or if we turned on a fare, that would mitigate that a little bit and balance it out and let people think before they actually request. If they have $1 or $2 on the line, that makes things a little bit more efficient. We partner with cities and private developments. Like I mentioned, Brightline, we have about 20 different municipal partners around the country, mostly focused in South Florida and Southern California. Some large programs about to launch in New York as well. And the optional revenue share program, again, fares or advertising models that can reduce the net cost to our partners. and also promote local businesses and events. So a lot of times, if there's an event going on in Lake Worth, we can swap out the artwork to promote that event and let people know about it. And then also provide a transportation solution to and from. In general, much more cost effective. Our cost per rider in some markets, in Pompano Beach is a great example. We've had months there that the cost per rider has been under $2. That's with zero fare to the rider. Just a great example of efficiency there. We're moving about 10,000 people a month with only 3 cars. In Fort Lauderdale, we're moving 22,000 at a cost per rider of about $5. It's a much larger area, a lot more vehicles on the road. But if you compare that with the county run community shuttles, that cost per rider is typically $30 to $50 per rider. And the people prefer an on-demand solution as opposed to walking to a bus stop and making a bunch of stops before they get off to where they're actually going. There's a example here, Hollywood. We replaced a fixed route trolley. They had 3 buses that was costing about $1.1 million a year. We replaced it with 10 of our on-demand vehicles, and we moved 80% more people at a 30% cost reduction. The data is key for us. We can look at everything in real time, and we provide monthly data reports. This is our San Diego operation. So you can see on the left is the real-time dashboard. All of those red bubbles there are active requests. That rolls up to the heat map and our monthly data reports for ridership, wait time, driver rating, travel time, everything that you can think of. We're tracking greenhouse gas emission reduction, vehicle miles traveled reduction, and then we get this heat mapping activity that we can look at and use to make some decisions. If you see the southern area of the heat map, there's very little activity there. That's an opportunity to maybe cut that out and add something to the further north and make the system as efficient as possible. We can also adjust that map for an event in a matter of minutes. We can always tweak that if there's an event or something going on or road closures if we need to work around it. And everything we do is built around flexibility. So again, there's always options, free versus paid rides, service area versus fixed stop. The left photo there is just an on-demand geofence coverage area. And the fixed stop example on the right is you would have to request a ride to or from any of those dots that are on that map. You couldn't go anywhere within the coverage area. So we can structure that however you would like. The adjustable service hours and the service area, again, it's all very flexible. We can adjust it in a matter of minutes. These are the 3 different vehicle options that we primarily use. The GEM neighborhood electric vehicle on the top, that's very popular. A lot of people like riding in it because everyone has their own door. It's comfortable. It's easy to have a shared ride with because there's 3 different rows. And it's just a fun and inviting vehicle. It's permitted on roads of 35 miles an hour or less. The EV sedans like a Tesla Model Y that you see here, those are great, but you're losing a few seats in there. There's really only the driver plus 3 comfortably. So it's a little tougher to pull with that. But they serve a purpose. We can go longer trips and it has a longer battery range. The EV vans are good for fixed route for longer, stretches. And we'll see that coming up, what we've proposed for Lake Worth Beach. But those are good because they take more passengers. We can get 8 to 15 plus options to have wheelchair accessibility with a lift in the back. And they're all open to be branded by the city, by the CRA, or by advertisers and sharing that revenue. Some press that we've gotten recently, Fast Company and Hollywood and Business Insider. We're getting a lot of attention for the program we just launched in Bellevue. There was quite a bit of press around that in the last 2 weeks. This is our footprint of all the locations that we're in around the country. And then this is what we looked at for Lake Worth Beach. A couple different options based on some earlier conversations of where the needs are and how we might be able to help. So this was the first option, which was 2 fixed route of the E-Transit vans that would run this stretch here on a fixed route, and we could set in specific stops, or it could just be anywhere along the route. Some general pricing on that. We have 2 vehicles in peak and shoulder season, and then 2 vehicles in low season. A lot of times we'll scale up and down when we get to the summer months. We can reduce a vehicle and save some cost and ship that to the busier months. Oftentimes we'll also have an ADA accessible gem on standby that we'll provide. So that's if anybody requests in the app that they need ADA accessibility, a driver would go and swap out and get the ADA vehicle to fulfill that request. And then the other option was a bit of a hybrid. We had the fixed route plus some on-demand coverage area. So the green geo fence, you'd be able to go anywhere on demand within that area. And then the longer runs that would be with the gem cars. And then the longer trips would be in the transit vans. And again, everything very flexible. We can adjust this. We could do all on demand. We have fares showing here, but it's all really up to what makes sense. And just some generic pricing on that model as well. And again, everything that we do is impact driven. So looking to impact the environment positively, communities connect. There's a large piece of economic development that we're able to get people to and from restaurants, shopping, and other businesses. And then just in general, access and mobility, little or no cost to ride, and of course, ADA options available. A couple of case studies, and I can share this deck with everybody so you can read through it, but some of our, some great work that's been done in San Diego, Hollywood, and New Rochelle, New York. Some awards and recognition that we've received. Excuse me. And that's the end of the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. We'll open it up to the board. Anybody want to start off? Go ahead.
I'll start. I'm the circuit booster in the crowd.
Oh, great.
I use it in Palm Beach and West Palm Beach, and as soon as I discovered it, I use it a lot.
That's right.
And I have some opinions about how Lake Worth should utilize it, which is similar to the way Palm Beach does. And
Yep.
I'm really interested in having the on-demand service, because I think if we have a fixed route exclusively, it's going to just be exactly like the bus that is not people don't ride anyway. So, and not everybody goes to the beach and not everybody goes to the train station, but there's a lot of north-south traffic from the neighborhoods into downtown and beyond. We're tailor-made with our grid to be able to get around. So I honestly, I keep saying this at every public meeting this comes up. Let's not make that mistake. We already have a city bus that goes to the beach. So I have a few questions. I also think it's worthwhile because I watched your company's presentation at the Palm Beach City Council.
Yep.
And they said that they track this data of who are the users, and you think that it might be the youth who use it, but it's actually seniors are
it's about 60% or over 65. Yeah.
Older 65. Over 65.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the people who don't want to park and don't want to drag their car out for every small thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's really part of the pitch too here is really important, because we have a very senior community. Is the GEM the only ADA?
The van is ADA compliant as well.
Okay, so the GEM is ADA.
Yep. There's an option for it. They're not all ADA. We would typically have one in each market.
Okay.
That's on standby. Like good example is Hollywood. We have an ADA gem plus 8 non-ADA gems. So when we get a request, which quite honestly in Hollywood is maybe once or twice a week,
Oh,
we go and swap out and get that vehicle and fulfill the ride.
great. Okay,
Yep.
well, I'm a big proponent of the gem. And
Same.
it's a hop off, hop on,
Yep.
cool experience. I also think that people, when you're driving around, you're not enclosed in a car.
Yep.
And people will see you. So, they're like, oh, I could be riding that thing. And so it's for me, you're nodding your head. So maybe you agree with.
I do. No, I think,
choices.
yeah. I mean, it comes up that people question it or call it a golf cart, but it's proven very popular. It's inviting people like to ride in it. Many times it's the first time in an electric car. So it starts that conversation, but it's a great vehicle for this type of setting, quite honestly.
Question about air conditioning, because in Palm Beach, I don't think these were air conditioned. It didn't matter because there's a lot of airflow.
Yep.
I love the fact that you've got 3 or 4 people in there, and then you arrive, and it arrives, and you get in your own car. You're not inconvenienced,
Right.
that the door.
You're not climbing over somebody like you would in a van, quite honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
It removes that kind of, thing where you might feel uncomfortable. One thing I think are the service hours that we should look at carefully, because with an Uber ride, you can get something like almost 24 hours,
Mhm.
but we have to really look at who and how people are using it, if they're getting to work. I mean, there might be some in the neighborhoods getting to work, along the train line
Mhm.
where all the auto repairs are, and that they might want to get there at 7:00. So
Yep.
I don't know.
We can do anything. So we started out at 10 a.m. in West Palm Beach, and now we open at 7 a.m. And for that purpose, to connect people to Tri-Rail, to Brightline.
Yeah.
So it's all adjustable. You can start where you start is rarely where we end, because there's always going to be adjustments, modifications.
Yeah. Do you do a little monthly report? So
We do.
that
Yep.
Whoever, like maybe even Joan, can look at it and say, oh,
Yep.
I think.
Yeah, we furnish that to all of our clients every month. By the fifth day, we report the previous month's activity, and it's a pretty robust report.
Great. So you can adjust to
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And I think, I wonder if we have any data on ridership for the city bus that we
Mhm.
have now. Is there anything like that available? It might be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to see it if there is.
Yeah, like most city buses.
Yeah, there should be some ridership reports online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's kind of a movement afoot to have that fixed
Mhm.
route. But I would really like to back it up with data to
Yeah.
see, are people even writing it?
Yeah.
I think it's, where are you parking? Where do these things go at night?
We always find a spot, whether it's partnering with a hotel. Sometimes we get a warehouse. We've never run into an issue. And sometimes it's city hall or a city building. If there's
Okay.
an annex or somewhere, we can install chargers.
Mhm.
And oftentimes it's something that we'll pay for and we need them overnight, but it could open up to the public during the day. So if you have some EV charging needs, something that we could look at.
Something to think about.
Yep.
Maybe even the Hatch parking lot.
You have them at the Bohemian.
Oh, the Beyond. Okay. Great. That is all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Yes. go ahead.
I have questions on your other markets. You have the fixed route versus the on-demand, and how does that work? And do people actually prefer, do other cities actually prefer to have it both ways? Because if it's on-demand, if I want to go to the beach, I really don't want to be diverted into the
Sure.
neighborhood, so
Yeah.
what's it like?
I agree 100%. I think everybody would prefer on demand, and that's kind of our preference as well. It's a lot easier to operate and it's just far more efficient instead of making unnecessary stops where nobody gets on or off. There's only a handful of markets that we're doing any fixed route or fixed stop. West Palm Beach is one of them. So if you're familiar with the trolleys there, they just eliminated those 3 trolley routes and we took over. It was consolidated down to 1, and we're running that with electric vans right now.
Okay.
And it's really just Clematis, east west. It goes to the Tri-Rail station. At the same time, we added 5 more on-demand vehicles and expanded a little bit further north. But there's a heavy preference for the on-demand service. If you can get picked up where you are and get to the door of where you want to go, especially in this heat, it's a lot easier than making a loop where nobody gets on and off. It's just far more efficient. So we prefer that. I hope that the city of West Palm Beach eventually just shifts everything to on-demand, but we're trying it out. This is a pilot for that right now. But they're going in that direction by consolidating. Now we have the data to see
Right.
how each type is being used. Yep.
And have your other markets followed that as well? Or did-
I think all the other, I'm trying to think of any other market that has fixed route, and the only other fixed route we do right now is Brightline in Fort Lauderdale to the airport. So that has a specific need and a purpose, and there's tremendous ridership on that. And they're actually paying, I think it's $10 a rider now. But everything else is on demand, and that's really, what our background is and where we specialize. So we do fixed route when we're asked to do it, but if we can do it as an on demand, we find it's far more preferred and easier.
And I had one other question. You had talked about having a cost at least $1.
Mhm.
And I think that does show rider commitment. If
Absolutely.
well, that it's free, you're going to have people, then you're going to show up and they're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going today.
Yeah.
And while it's $1, it's still $1.
It's something.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So most of your markets have at least some type of rider cost.
They don't. There's only a handful that do. And I can tell you Hollywood is the example. That's the one that started out as free. And 2 years in, the riders, we were doing 14,000 riders a month. And the wait times were getting high and the missed rides were getting high because it was so popular. So at a renewal one year, the city commission said, what if we put a fare in here? And so we did a $1 fare. And the next month we actually gave more rides because we got more efficient. We weren't there'd be people that would request 5 times a day to go across the street. And it was just pulling us out of doing anything worthwhile that people actually need it for. So that dollar on the line made a huge difference. A year later, they said, well, it didn't really impact anything. Let's go up to $2. And we did that, and same story. So that got us to the point where I believe it was March of this year, we returned $24,000 in fare revenue off of their bill just in that 1 month. And it's usually between 18 and 24,000 a month they're getting in fare revenue.
So where does that money go? Does that go into your pocket or?
No, that comes off of the bill. That comes off of their monthly invoice after any processing fees. It's all through the app. So there's
Processing fees.
There's processing fees. I mean, it's all through credit card through our app.
Okay.
And because the transaction amounts are so low, it's a significant percentage.
Yeah.
But we're working on a wallet feature that you could either prepay for 10, 20, 30 rides or preload an account. So it's a single transaction and we can reduce those fees.
Yeah.
The other.
I saw that you had advertising, a line item for advertising.
Yep.
Sorry. Can you give an idea of, I saw you had some kind of figures thrown in on that, but can you give us an idea of how much we could really rely on that to kind of offset costs?
Yeah, I mean, it's roughly about 10% realistically. What we do is whoever the funding partner is kind of owns the branding rights on the vehicle. So if you wanted to brand the CRA or the city or an event, that's your right to do that. If you wanted us to go and sell it, we can do it. There's a 50-50 split on that, any ad revenue that we get. And to be honest, in the winter months, it'll probably be $2,500 to $3,000 a month. But in the summer months, it might be $1,000 a month. But what we do a lot is try and get a local business to take it throughout the entire year. So it's not constantly changing artwork but it's all very flexible, whatever direction you would want to go in, we can accommodate.
You had on the map for the long distance door to door, you had it on the east side of Dixie. Is there a specific reason why?
I don't know if we can get it back up, but I think that was just from some previous conversations, like some direction we understood, but I might have.
Because what I believe, a lot of those individuals that live on that side of town, it's gonna be hard to get them out of the car.
Yeah.
Might be into the idea. At first, it might seem like a cool niche thing to do.
Yeah.
But I think over the long term, they're always gonna choose their cars over this ride sharing alternative. I think on the other side of Dixie that we have a really good opportunity because there's a lot of people who are committed to alternative means of transportation.
Yep.
Who really need help with that last mile, first mile
Mhm.
type of thing. I think I would like to hear maybe in future how your company would do outreach to certain groups and demographics that don't subscribe to traditional media. Because Lakewood Beach is a very diverse city. And another thing, the city or in the CRA have invested a lot of money into a parking garage. I think with that fixed route, we could definitely get people to use that parking garage. Now, if you also offer them that door to door, less incentive to use that parking garage.
Well, you could also connect it to the parking garage and do park and ride. That's what we do in Hollywood. There's a couple of city garages that were underutilized and we put some signage up there. The city adds that communication, park at the Van Buren garage and take circuit to the beach or wherever you're going. So we can do that as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more opportunity to impact a lot more people if we flip that.
Yeah, I think, and also we talked about if we're funding it, are we committed to just the CRA outline map?
Well,
Correct.
so the city is interested in partnering with us, so the reason that we drew the route was to try just to figure out how much would be outside the CRA versus inside the CRA. So if we take the CRA map, we'd have to kind of draw like a new area, not a route, but just an area that we would cover. And then figure out how much is in the CRA versus outside the CRA, and then make sure the city is willing to pay for those places outside.
Yeah, this is very much a starting point, and it needs to have a discussion with all the stakeholders involved of what's the real launch point. And again, that can all change week over week or month over month. We can pilot new areas and expand and contract, but that's really the idea of it.
It's only 7 miles in the entire city, 7 square miles. It doesn't seem like we need to, especially if you're doing, on demand, it doesn't seem like you'd have to limit it.
That's a good stretch to cover the entire 7 square miles.
Is it?
It's going to be a lot more vehicles than we have on here.
Okay.
Yeah. But we can definitely
Well, 7
price it out.
goes way up and way.
Yeah.
I know in West Palm Beach, they stop at, like Curry Park and in, I think they do. And then in Palm Beach, it's limited, it's really clustered around the downtown areas. And that's where the bulk of the people are. And
but it changes, and we always have groups that are just outside. If you see our heat maps, it's always red on the fringes, which means people are walking into the area to then request a ride. But it does always happen that, hey, I'm just outside. Can you expand 1 block north? And it's an evolving thing that it's, where it starts is not where it's going to be a month in. I'm sure there's going to be other groups that might want to come in and fund it. That's really what we're seeing now in West Palm Beach, that we had Brightline, the DDA, now the city's funding vehicles. We're speaking with Palm Beach Atlantic University and the related group, and a new mobility coalition was just formed for the purpose of everybody contribute to one system for the greater good, instead of everybody having to go out and do their own thing. There's efficiencies in that. And that's.
Will you come to Newport, Rhode Island?
I would love to. It's come up several times for events, so it's come up quite a bit. Yeah.
But I talked to the mayor about it and he's up for it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep. For the preload cards, let's say somebody can't access a credit card, how would you recommend what could they do to handle them?
For an unbanked, we can do promo codes too that you can hand out to whoever. And we can do that for residents. That's something that we're looking at. In Fort Lauderdale, there's a resident parking program that if you show your utility bill or your license, you get $24 a year. You can go park anywhere. We're talking with them about doing something if we turn on fares, that the same system, we could give them a monthly or an annual promo code to get free rides. So we can do that for anybody.
But you could load your app or something like that with a bank account, right?
Yeah.
You don't need a credit.
That's something that's not built out today, but something we should have in the next couple of months.
Okay, 'cause I'm concerned If it's just a credit card, we're
Yeah.
gonna run into a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Being able to access that.
I think for Lake Worth, because we have that issue, even in Palm Beach, everything's free. You
Yeah.
get on it and you hop off, and the bus driver, the drivers get tipped, and it's a very casual thing. And honestly, I would advocate that we do not have a fare. We can always introduce it later. It's so flexible, but just for that very reason, Daniel, to be able to access the community that's coming off the train and going into the neighborhoods where they want to go.
Yeah. And you can mention that it will start out as free. There may be a fare in the future, but
Mhm.
Is it possible with your technology to block users that might be taking advantage or not?
yes, we can. Yep.
So,
So the drivers can report if there's, any,
no, I mean, if somebody calls the service and then no shows.
Yep. There's something right there on the app that they no show.
And the next,
Yep.
time their number, they're done.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh,
We can do that.
I would eliminate the, I mean,
They stay a step ahead and create a new account with a different email, but we're trying to stay on top of it. But the drivers get to know the same people. They're there. It's the same drivers in the same area every day. So
it's not
they
by
get-
phone number, it's by,
it is. You can be verified now, which is what we just added. You have to be verified by a phone number or an email address, but everybody has 4 different email addresses they could probably verify. But we stay on top of it pretty well. And there is a reporting feature right in the app. So the driver, if anything happens, they report it in real time. It goes to our central ops team and we keep a record of it all.
I don't know if they sorry, I don't know if they properly explain the issue where we're only able to make an expense in an area, a set area within the city.
Yeah.
So that's why we're sensitive to driving outside that area,
Sure.
but we don't want to overcomplicate it, but it seems like your software would allow us to kind of stay within the law.
Yeah. I mean, we also have zones that we're testing out right now, should be ready at the end of this month. So you could even create the CRA zone within the city zone and then true up at the end of the month where the actual ridership is. If that makes sense.
I think there's a solution in there.
For sure. Yeah.
How do you support the homeless population? How much of your ridership is that community?
It's a good amount. There's a lot of areas that we expanded to in Fort Lauderdale. Dorsey Riverbend was the commissioner of District 3 there, saw the service downtown and wanted it for her neighborhood, which is a little bit just west of downtown. There's a sizable homeless population there and disadvantaged community. So we opened it up and expanded to that area. We have homeless populations, obviously, in all of the downtowns that we're in. They're able to access the service just by walking up as well. And then the drivers, if there's any concerns, the drivers can report it like with any other rider.
Any other questions?
When can we do this? How quickly can we
Ready.
get it up?
I mean, we can get up and running and with the presence that we have here and the infrastructure we have built out, we could probably get up and running at some point in October, I would say.
Goal was November, because that's when FDOT's going to be closing parts of Lake and Lucerne. So once we figure out just an area of coverage and the city agrees, we'll do the agreement. We're ready to go.
Yeah, so I think worth understanding in Hollywood, the program there is funded by the city and the CRA. So I don't know, I think I shared the new
Mhm.
agreement with piggyback language, but that's an opportunity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
For coming.
Thank you so much.
On to our action agenda, item A, real estate acquisition services. We have a couple of fine people here from Anderson and Carr. Joan, you want to tee this up, and
Yeah.
if we have any questions for these guys, they can come up and.
So back in January in 2017, we did an RFP to solicit firms for real estate, property negotiation, and land acquisition. Anderson and Carr was the winner of that RFP, and they've been serving us since then. We authorized an extension in 2019 and also in 2021. And we're asking the board to please extend again tonight. Not only do they I'm so sorry. Not only do they help us find properties, for affordable housing, but they also help us with sometimes when there's tenants and trying to make sure that we do all the repairs and get all the things that we need there. So they really go above and beyond as far as we're concerned, and we would really like to continue to work with them.
Thanks, John. I'm gonna go first here because I probably have more interaction with these guys than others up here, because a lot of times in real estate, things move quickly, and especially in this market. So I'm doing DocuSigns and stuff on my phone from all over the world, and these guys are really efficient and on top of it. I'm careful to look at everything, and I've never once caught an error or mistake on the contracts. And a lot of times there's addendums and changes, and I mean, it's a crazy market. So, I've appreciated all the work and that they've put in, and it's enabled us to do a lot of really neat projects. So I'm certainly in favor of continuing working with them. Anyone else have questions? Do you guys want to, if anybody has any questions or comments, they can come forward, or otherwise look for, actually, we do need a motion, and then we can have discussion, then we can go to the public. So is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we review and approve the agreement for acquisition services between Anderson Carr and the Lake Worth Beach CRA.
Thanks, Connor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Tom. Now, if anyone has any questions or comments, and then we'll go to public and go ahead and take the vote. Seeing none, any questions from the public? Please come forward. And I just need your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Todd. Hi, my name is Todd Townsend. I live right here in Lake Worth Beach at 502 South J Street. Am I allowed to ask questions about the electric vehicles? Can I just offer comments on the electric vehicle stuff, or does it have to be about what we're talking about?
Yeah, just this item. I saw that you were interested in talking to them, but I can't take comments on presentations or questions. But if you can send an email to the office, the CRA office, then they can certainly get you information or answer questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Any other? Seeing none, all in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, guys. On to B, CRA commercial grant programs from fiscal year 2023 to 2024. Chris.
Okay, for the record, Chris DeBrose, Lake Worth CRA, Lake Worth Beach CRA. Before you guys is our 4 grant programs are very popular grant programs for small businesses, commercial developments, and other projects that have a commercial component in them. These are the 4 that we've really been that we've had for the past few years: the interior improvement grant, the commercial facade grant, the signage grant, and our public infrastructure program. The 3 most popular ones are the interior, the facade, and the signage grants, and some of them have come to you already this year for approval. We're keeping the same programs for this fiscal year starting October 1. We made a few changes to them, clean up the applications a little bit to make them a little more concise and clear and cohesive, and pretty much all the same. So if you look through your packet, all the applications kind of look the same. So sorry if you get confused. The only changes that we really made are increasing the dollar amounts that someone could apply for on 3 of the grants. On the interior grant and the commercial facade, we're increasing the amount per parcel from 35,000 to 50,000 maximum. And on the public infrastructure program grant, which we really don't get a lot of applications for, it's been a while since we received an application, but there may be some coming up this year. That was $150,000 maximum. We're increasing that to $200,000 to offset the cost of construction costs and labor costs that have been increasing over the past 2 years. Cleared up a little bit of language on the applications to really make it shine or show that there will be a lien placed on the project. We also put a request, and this is based on some comments made by the board earlier this year, to have not only the business owner come in and speak to the board when requesting funding, but also the property owner. And I think other than that is small minor changes, but if there's anything else that the board would like to see changed, let us know now before we can advertise these in September, October. And so we're just looking for a approval for the grant applications as they are.
Thanks, Chris. Take a motion for this item.
I'm gonna make the motion in a second. Here we go. Thank you. I'll make a motion that we approve the continuance of 4 CRA commercial grant programs and allow staff to begin accepting applications in October of this year.
Thanks, Donna. Second,
A second.
second from Carla. Okay, discussion on this.
Yes, one of the things that have bothered me about the facade grant, and I know that you're offering an olive branch by saying that the owner would actually come in with the person who is renting the property. I just wonder, we have an entity that owns a lot of property in Lake Forest, and do they really need the money? And while both the renter may benefit, is there a perceived increase of benefit for that renter? Like if you said that we're going to do the facade that is really owned by the owner, not the renter, then is the renter going to be guaranteed 6 months of free rent? I mean, is there anything that we can do that would make the renter benefit just as much as the owner? Because the owner really doesn't need the money.
You know,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but the only thing we ask of the landlord, when we have those instances, which is frequent, we ask that the tenant and landlord work that out while they're preparing the lease agreement for new business coming in, so that if a tenant contributes most of their own funding for the improvements, that any grants received that go to the property owner's name come back to the tenant in some form, but that we don't look for that in a final lease agreement. So we could, depending on how if the board wants to go that direction.
Would that be something? No,
If I might, David Tolston, CRA Council, our concern is getting involved with the private transaction between the landlord and a tenant, and monitoring that, and what records do we need, and how intrusive does a governmental entity get with respect to what is essentially a private transaction. When the CRA is looking for, the elimination of slum and blight and providing that grant to improve the facade, we hope, I think, as Chris was saying, that the landlord provides the tenant with that benefit that they're getting from having a new business in what probably would have been an empty space. But it's difficult to police that from a governmental perspective.
Could we at least ask if there is any type of agreement, or is that, benefit? And this is my private opinion, it just rankles me that we have the same people come before us numerous times and we're funding their improvements.
Well, we do ask for lease agreements in the application generally. So if we also ask for, without demanding, that's written in some sort of writing between the landlord and the property or the lessee.
I was just going to add that maybe one way to kind of get around this would be to limit the number of limit the number of awards that are made for an entity for 1 year. So let's say, they can't do more than 2 or 1.
They'll have multiple entities that
Well, but
you've got me started. I'm trying not to. So what's going on here? I own a lot of commercial property. What's going on here is that they are leasing property and saying, hey, we're not going to give you any TI and tenant improvement money. You can just go to the CRA. So we are subsidizing them. And it drives me crazy. And I don't know how we get around it, but it's not right. And, you know, we've had, the time that I've been sitting here, I think we've had at least 3 that I can think of.
Yeah, I'd say on average. Yeah, or that entity has sent a lot of applicants our way and they just don't follow through. The applications aren't complete, so they get rejected, never come to the board.
And I have a feeling that sometimes it's like, yeah, this is, you know, as they're negotiating terms in this lease, one side and the other, it's like, hey, we're not gonna give you money, but don't worry. Just go to the CRA, they're gonna write a check, so, you know, you're fine. And then the actual end user sees what the process looks like and what they have to do, and they're like, well, I guess it's coming out of our pocket entirely. So it's not I don't think it's a real fair situation. But I also don't know how to fix that.
I'm curious as to see how this works, this new part, because this is a pet peeve of mine, but maybe it's not.
I just need some clarity on what the issue is. I think with our mission being to remove blight, it's kind of a broad mission, whether it comes, whether the money is funneled, you know, through a landlord who is not that responsible about taking responsibility for their properties and shoving it off onto the tenant. Is this what I'm hearing? And then the tenant often has to jump through hoops. Well, there's going to be a lease, and the lease agreement has to be negotiated before usually you go to the CRA. So there's an agreement there that says tenant is paying for their own improvements. And so that money is then going to the tenant. You think that landlords shirking their duties, or is that the issue that I'm hearing? I'm just a little confused.
I think the issue might be that you have one entity. It may be different LLCs, you know, different limited partnerships that owns many parcels in Lake Worth Beach. And what they'll do is they'll say, okay, you know, we want you as a tenant, and the tenant will come forward and say, well, I'll be happy to be here, but I need you to help me pay the cost of some of my improvements to reduce my costs in starting up my business. And the landlord says, well, I don't need to, because you can go to the CRA and get the money. So the landlord still charges the same amount of rent and doesn't have to come out of pocket to give the tenant money for those improvements, because they'll say, go to the CRA and do it. So it's
a loophole, but I just don't know how you get around
get
it.
involved, like you said.
Right.
The lease has to be in existence before they come to us, so we don't get involved in those negotiations. But if there's a way that we can track, whether it's a principal, whether it's a manager, you know, a member of that LLC or that, you know, limited partnership, that somehow we can trace it through Sunbiz and say, okay, if you're a manager, if it's the same entity, that's easy, right? Same name. But if it's a manager or same member or same officer or director, you know, you're getting a little further down the line, but we could look at it and maybe you limit it to, you know, a couple times a year.
Well, I think it's interesting if you drag the owner in here along with the tenant, then that allows the commission to say, hey, you know, to recognize them, they have to be represented. And we can address it at that time and say, you know, why isn't this money coming out of your own pocket to improve your own building to, you know, help this? So we could address it that way. Do you think, David?
To me, it's exactly the issue with, you know, giving a grant to a residential landlord. It's the same exact issue. It's like we have limited resources, and when you buy a building, whether it's a house or to rent or a building to rent, you've started a business. And when you're going to use our resources to improve your building for your tenant, I just don't agree with it. I think that it should, because we have limited resources. I think that if you want to get more rent and maybe a higher quality tenant, you would invest in your own building, right? That's the the normal way of doing business. And I feel like subsidizing those, just like subsidizing a residential landlord, is not the best use of our funds. But that's, my opinion.
No, I was gonna say, I agree with both of you, and especially, it's come to my mind as well. I'm glad you raised it, Carla, especially since like during my tenure here, which hasn't been all that long since the new board members have come on, like we've given grants to some of these. I'm not talking about the big entity now, which is like the elephant in the room, but we've also given grants to some businesses that have already gone belly up. And I think that's the other issue. It's like, okay, well, capital improvement to improve your interior, but then that the owner would have been nice had they made that capital improvement. So the business had to jump to stay afloat.
And with our now, so let's follow that through. So I buy a building, I tell the new tenant, go put their hand out to the CRA, new tenant gets some money, does some improvements, they fail, I get the building back, and my assets now worth more at the cost of the taxpayer.
Exactly.
That's what my issue is.
No, I agree. So if there's a way that we can legally do this and to take precautions. I mean, I also had a question earlier that I wanted to ask, and it's not about.
And I just responded.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure, David.
historically, I think, with respect to CRAs, they started with facade grant programs because that was easy. You fix the facade. And those agreements were made between the owner of the building and the CRA. And actually, the first ones I worked on, the CRA actually got an easement over the facade. And that prohibited the owner from making any changes to the facade that was improved the CRA money without getting the approval of the CRA. So as those grant programs have expanded, you still had the owner coming in, maybe not so much an easement, but maybe an obligation that you don't sell the building for 2-3 years. And if you do, then the CRA gets the money back, which we have, as John's whispering right here. So then, then we take a step further down the road and we say, okay, now we're going to allow a tenant to apply for a grant to improve a building that their only interest is a lease. So, I mean, we can either go back to the standpoint if only the owners can apply, and they've got to maintain it, they can't sell it. And as long as they maintain it and it looks nice and they keep up the improvements, they do whatever they want to do with their business, and we don't get involved with the tenant. So, that's the evolution of it, as part of your discussion.
I hate to, so I'm not just calling out the former Monca, but in terms of the last grant that I know we gave a grant to a new realty whose name I don't recall right now. So those capital improvements would then stay with that building for the new entity to come in, and hopefully they won't go belly up. And how about like for Kana? Because I think there was also a grant for Kana.
Same thing. Either he leases it again and they, use all the improvements, or he sells it and we get it.
So I don't know if it was for the murals or what precisely that was for, but would they then need to keep, let's say, murals and things like that, or are they just entitled to kind of pay out if they don't want to keep those same improvements? Like exterior, I think, right?
We did
Yeah.
exterior and interior for them. I would say that, they're allowed to do things like painting and stuff like that, but they're not allowed to get rid of the open space area, because that was part of the that we paid for. So we don't pay for things like furniture or anything like painting and
Sure.
things like that. We pay more for actual infrastructures and stadiums.
Because some of those improvements are really beautiful. So it'd be a shame to lose it. Sorry for my cold. Yeah. James.
So if we look at the bigger picture, if we're bankrolling improvements, community improvements, those improvements, I know restaurants, you give money to a restaurant, they go belly up, that interior gets demolished and pitched generally for the next tenant, because nobody wants somebody's old restaurant, things like that. So possibly could we look at facade improvements, because that is a benefit to the entire community. It does lift blight, and there's that sense that you're improving everybody's view, and And I would say, I don't know if trees are part of our, you know, purview, but I would say trees are a community benefit that lives blight as well. You know, could we maybe concentrate on more on those things and try to promote that, or even steer people away, or write something up saying, we're not going to give you a grant for the interior of your restaurant. I'm gonna bringing up all these things that I don't know much about, but Joan knows more about it.
You know, I've been on this board for a long time collectively, not this term, but prior. And what I've kind of seen with these grants, and we've done, as David said, there's been an evolution of this process, but when you get, it's almost better to be less restrictive, but be more aware when you're actually on this board voting on it, I think, because we don't, it's not like we get flooded with applicants. So restricting, you know, I don't know if that's the answer, but I think that it's more or less of, it's up to us to kind of, you know, say what we want, because they can fill out the application, they can come up here. It doesn't mean they get the money. You know, we still have to all, or the majority anyway, have to feel good about it, you know?
Yeah, but you also have to justify turning them down, you know.
Yeah.
The other part of it. Maybe we should talk about trees, because we have the benefit of having the tree board president sitting next to him. Would it be kosher for the tree board to come to the CRA and say, we want $50,000 to plant trees?
That's,
I mean, that's. Right now, you're discussing the grant program. and that
Yeah,
would Be more
grant.
a budget
Yeah,
program.
I mean, could they apply just, you know, could that?
Well, landscaping is part of the facade, but has to be per parcel. Landscaping is one of the things you could do in addition to windows, doors, paint, roof, all that, anything based on the outside. So it's landscaping. But there's minimum of $20,000 worth of improvements to each parcel. So that's a lot of landscaping for a lot of these smaller parcels that are downtown that can do like zero landscaping, but it is in there that if they came through, they also have to include a landscape plan that gets approved by the city. So it's in there and it's
Yeah,
encouraged.
the tree board wouldn't qualify under the grant program,
Under any.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're not an entity. They're not to minimize what they do. You know, they're a board of the city.
Yeah, it's
So
too
certainly
bad.
if they wanted to make a request to the city, make a request to CRA, you know, that would be an avenue
We talked about funding, is that right?
within the CRA area.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's
Wait, are you-
so hot. Go ahead, sorry.
I would rather we move back to having the owner apply for the grant. Because this is a capital improvement. The owner is also going to be able to take this off of his taxes. You know, and any improvements that we make in the end is going to go to benefit him. And if the owner, at least the owner doing it jointly, or the owner doing it irrespective of the tenant. Because we have and when the tenant comes and a tenant stands before us and say, I want to open this new business, we're all excited, we're all, you know, for them. And I am, I want to see that. I want to decrease slum and blight, but I also don't want to keep lining the pockets of the same owners over and over again. You know, and so if the owner comes jointly with the tenant, then we can say, we can't do this because this is this owner's 5th time coming before us. Or
Yeah.
3rd time this year. We have no say right now. And you would expect us to be able to vote as a board and see this, but we may not see it and we may not be aware of it. And it's not a reflection of us. It just may be something that we missed. But if we put it in the documentation of what's provided, that the owner jointly comes with the tenant, then we have no reason not to be aware of who's getting the money. And we're making the decision based on all of the facts, not just what we see when they come and stand before us.
Yeah, that's something that would clear up on the application. all applicants have to be the property owner, except for the signage grant. And all agreements are made between the CRA and the property owner, regardless. So just, if they're here, or if they come to you, you'd know who you're really giving the money to. So
We don't require them to be present. On that.
not presently.
So we might, that,
So we don't know that.
It's usually in the application. It's in the application.
It is. And when I saw it in the application, I said, didn't these people just come before us a couple months ago? Didn't we just give them money? You know, so no, if the owner is asking, then I can ask my questions of the owner. And if the owner comes, I can say, are you, not that you have to, but are you giving any money to your tenants in exchange for this? You know, and what happens, because in the end, it is their taxes, it is their business. You know, so I want to see more responsibility of the owner and more accountability, which I don't think that we have that right now. So that's my recommendation, but.
thanks, Dan.
Sorry, I was waiting. So, I just wanted to mention or comment that I think there's a big difference between promoting business and, you know, just giving money freely to people who are probably not as invested in their own business as we are interested in them having a successful business or tenants here in the city. And the issue that we're running into, housing, right, where, you know, business is a private endeavor, an enterprise to make oneself more wealthy. You know, what I push for with the residential landlord grants is people who, whereas the CRA can promote business, you know, we don't have a lot of support from the city promoting healthy, decent housing. And so that's where I feel the CRA could fill in a gap. What I think, what I'm hearing from the colleagues is that I think that we want the staff to support us a little bit more when it comes to this and be more critical of these applications. So if it does come up that somebody's applying for a grant and you've seen that it's coming from a source or from one entity that's already received a lot of support from the CRA, that's something that's worthwhile to mention. Along with that, you know, when it comes to these like inspections of, you know, just from hearing that, I would also like to know if, you know, if staff, when they're reviewing the application process, when they go inside the building and they review, you know, is it possible, like, are we paying for new flooring that, you know, somebody going in there, an expert or something like, could say, you know, that flooring isn't that bad. I'm going to make a comment maybe to the CRA, to the board. The flooring is, they want money for new floors, but I think the floor is in decent condition. I mean, we don't know that difference. If it comes to the kitchens, interior build outs, you know, I hope that the staff is just being a little bit more critical of these applicants so that, you know, we're working with more information up here. I think for starters, it'd be great to point out to the board when a business is associated with another business that's already received grants in the past.
May I? Thank you. Chris does that already. He will let you know if somebody from you know, that particular business has already been in front of you for a grant, or whether they did it 10 years ago or 2 years ago or what have you. As far as going in and inspecting, that's way out of our area of expertise, and that's very subjective. So if people want to write in that they want new floors, whether I think they need new floors or not, wouldn't know what to do with that.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
To follow up. Do all CRAs work that way? They have nobody who inspects the
I
line?
mean, we make
items that
sure
they
things are
requested
done, but we're not going to go in there and go, well, you asked for a floor, but your floor looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, for example, I don't know if it's happened, right? Monca's received a grant and now they received another grant. The people who own the actual building, right? It wasn't for anything related to what we gave money to Monca's for, right?
We only gave money basically for the interior part of it, which was the piping. Had nothing to do with the business, really,
But
except they couldn't function, but they were on their way out already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good discussion. I like these grant programs.
So what I'm taking away from this is you're okay with increasing the limits, but we just need more information when we bring people to you.
I think, honestly, I think that, if you're looking for, an amendment to the motion to state that we want the actual owner of the property present,
It's already in there.
but I don't think they have to be present.
Chris has changed it.
It's been
put it in there.
changed.
Oh, it does. Sorry.
Change for this year.
Thank you. I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we're good with the motion. We have a second. Public comment on this? None, all in favor?
I,
Oops, I was jumping the gun.
I'm willing to amend my motion, but I'd also like to add something to say that we will limit the number of times that the owner can come before us in a given year or in a given 2 years. Is that possible?
You'd have to set that.
Say how many?
Hmm?
1 grant, 2 grants?
Maybe 2, but
Two.
2 max.
2 in a 1-year
25
period?
years.
Yes,
Okay.
So 2 grants, not 2 parcels.
right. 2 grants within 1 year to the owner, to the same owner.
Well, there's the owner.
That is allowing us to spread our resources among other properties that these companies may not own.
I would only
Yeah.
suggest that more than 1 year. And I would say, 1 grant every 3 years. Two.
I would just say also that there's the multiple LLCs and there's also multiple maybe people within that family that are in charge of that LLC. So are you going against the family or individuals or the LLC?
David's like freaking out. No, I mean, we're just trying to prevent
It's
people. from-
understood, but
Program.
but I need to be able to explain that to when these people call. So
I mean, the only way, you have to go back to how the property is titled with respect to the owner. Right? You look at the name of the owner who owns the property and look at the corporate entity to see how it's structured. So if you want to say owner, then you're looking at the owner of the property, whatever that is. And that company, they only own 1 parcel. But that individual who's in charge of that company, they own 10 different parcels and 10 different LLCs. So, and that's difficult to decipher when you're looking through an application and somebody's wife may be a principal in one, somebody's daughter may be a principal in another, and it's even more difficult. So I think the easiest way to do is just say owner. And if you want to limit it to 1 every 2 years or 2 every 3 years, then, we can do that. Because they'll still have to jump through some hoops as far as conveying property to different entities and those kinds of things, if they want to go above those limits.
You could have partners. How do you do the partners then? Let's just say,
So we'll just look at the name of the owner. That's what we're gonna, but that's,
so like it was 50-50 partners, then 2 partners would show up.
well, it's the owner, then you have a managing member, or you have a president, or, whoever it might be. So, but we're gonna look at the name of the corporate entity.
I think that's a fair compromise.
Or how
Can you
many,
restate your motion, please, as amended?
so it's your motion, but you want to amend it to provide that the owner may only receive how many grants over how long a period?
I'd like to at least 1 owner per 1 grant per year or 1 grant. I'm looking for.
Thought 2 is okay. I mean, we don't, as you say, we should really ask our staff to advise because he's saying we don't really get a plethora of, applications. So we don't get too narrow, maybe. I mean,
We just get the same ones from the same people.
for two a year.
I'm a willing,
I thought your idea was good the first time.
I will agree to changing it for 2 per year. If that's what the board wants, that's fine. I just want something in place. Right now, we have nothing in place.
What, Chris, what do you
I don't think
think?
that's gonna be very effective. because
Can we ask your
we've never had
opinion?
More than 2.
it's going to be difficult to relay the message to certain individuals. But I'll do the best I can. Are we talking about just the 2 primary grants, which are facade and tenant improvement? The ones that are 50,000, are we talking about just those grants? Okay.
I just want to caution you all in that. And, you know, I understand, I totally get it. We have one person who owns like 50 something properties here. If we take this away. And he can only do, let's say, 1 a year or 2 a year. That's less businesses coming to the city, possibly, because guess what? Every other CRA lets you do as many as you want. Within reason, right? So, you know, is it really bad that the two outsides of two properties that are really blighted now look a lot better? I understand for the tenant improvement, but for the facade, I just think the facade is so important, especially for eliminating blight. And now we're saying, no, we'd rather it just look like heck, you know?
Yeah.
What I'd really rather is that the owner gives the money to update the property. I understand this. And I hear you. I hear you. I just want to make sure there's some accountability and we don't have to be. So.
David, what do you recommend from a legal perspective in this slippery slope discussion?
Whatever the motion is, just that it's clear so that staff knows what they need to do. So if it's a total of 2 grants from the facade and the tenant improvement within 1 year.
Yes. Okay. The board.
And then we'll to that.
Yes, that's my motion.
Second.
That is-
Yeah, I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please state so by saying aye.
I,
Aye,
Aye.
motion carries. Thank you. We are on to action agenda item C, 1212 10th Avenue North. David,
Yeah.
I think I have to increase myself on this. I sold on this property.
You're not making, well. I mean, it's up to you, but if you sold them property,
I used to own this property.
you used to own it, but you sold it. So this agreement has no impact on you.
How long ago was that? I remember disclosing it.
You have no ongoing relationship.
No,
with the owner.
no.
So
Okay, just
based
checking,
upon that, I think you're fine.
just checking. Thank
You're
you.
fine.
Okay,
So you have the staff memo, David told us the CRA attorneys, you have the staff memo. Basically what CRA is asking the board to approve the amendment to the right to repurchase agreement, which was entered into between the CRA and 1212 10th Avenue North LLC. They were given 2 years from their date of closing to pull their
certificate of occupancy.
get their certificate of occupancy. And as you can see, they haven't been able to get that far yet. So the amendment would provide for the extension of CRA's right to repurchase the CRA's portion of the property until July 31st, 2025. The CRA had acquired a small strip of land from the city and then conveyed it to the LLC for the purpose of developing the property. So in the event that they don't get their CO by July 2025, then the CRA would have the right to take that strip of property back. We're just keeping that right to repurchase active. So we anticipate that they will actually do construction and get the CO, but if they don't, then the CRA can always exercise the right to repurchase and get the property back. But it's just that small strip of property. It's was it 0.03 acre? Yeah, 0.03 acres.
thank you, David. Take a motion in a second and we'll have discussion if any.
Yeah, I'll make the motion, to approve the amendment to the right to repurchase, allowing the developer 2 years to complete the project. That was July 2025,
Yeah, July 31st, 2020.
July 31st, 2025.
You have a motion in a second. Any discussion on this?
I mean, I actually just had the question, the obvious question, like what has been the reason for the delay?
Basically financing and trying to find labor. It's a small project. It's 24 units. And it's just been really hard to try to get financing and also, labor and people to work on it. But he's ready to go now.
Okay, good.
Probably sticker shock on the construction cost. Is what it probably is.
Well, yeah, because he told the city commission that the rents here would be less than 120% of AMI. So although there's no deed, the city didn't put a deed restriction on it, he did make that statement to the city commission. So he's probably trying to figure out how to
Mhm.
pay for it.
Okay. Any other comments? Public, any comments on this one? No, all in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. On to D, budget fiscal year 24. Can I have a motion, please?
Make the motion, which recommends that we pass resolution number 2401, adopting the FY 2023 and FY 2024 CRA budget with the proposed changes.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second discussion on this item. Anybody want to kick us off? No, discussion.
You want me to give-
We've had, I mean. Sure.
Okay. I took everything that you said at our last meeting as far as what our priorities were. But then we had a slight change because the county had actually lowered their millage. So it decreased our revenues by $114,000. So what we did is we actually increased the interest income because we showed this year that we're actually making, for once, pretty good interest this year. So we increased that by $20,000. And we increased the use of fund balance by almost $30,000, but we are still within the 16 to 17% unrestricted fund balance reserve that is recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association. So as far as expenses are concerned, we increased salary and benefits 14,000. We decreased the TIF rebate for the Mid and the Bohemian by 20,000 because now they're not paying as much to the county. We decreased neighborhood programs, $20,000. We're going to use that money that we do have left in there, $30,000 to do some programs with Habitat for Humanity. One is called Brush of Kindness, where they paint and do outside facades for houses that are around the other Habitat homes when they're new. Critical repair. It's not emergency repair, but it is critical repair for other things that can wait, but definitely need to be done. And then also their Safe at Home Aging in Place grant. So they were really thrilled because they have obviously the materials. A lot of people donate to Habitat for Humanity. They also have a great set of volunteers. What was missing was just some financing for it. We also reallocated $160,000 from the land acquisition, which was originally $200,000. And we increased local transportation by $100,000. So we could pay for the circuit and possibly if you wanted to wrap the circuit with CRA information. Commercial grant program, because we were putting up the maximums for that, we increased that to a total of $400,000, an increase of $45,000. And for property management, we went in and we added $15,000 so we could help pay for the downtown power washing. Everything else for debt service and capital project fund remains the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Any other questions? Public? All in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Back to you.
Just a few housekeeping things. Our home buyer club is back in session over at the Hatch. It started, I think it was last week, and it goes to August 16th. We also will have a production of Macbeth, believe it or not, at Hatch from August 17th through 20th, and also the 24th through the 27th. They're actually over there right now making the stage. It's pretty cool. We have the rural, let me see if I can. Florida Rural Legal Services coming to do a presentation called Ask a Lawyer at Hatch on August 18th. And that's everything from, everything related to, renting and potentially being thrown out or, having some representation as far as being a tenant. The Art of Recovery is also going to be at Hatch. We'll be there from September 1st to the 4th. And last but certainly not least, Day of the Dead sponsorships. This year it's October 28th. We pay for this particular event through donations and through grants. And it would be great if everybody could not only sponsor themselves, but maybe the people they work for could sponsor it as well. We're really looking for a really good headliner for the music event, and things are expensive. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, John. All right, move on to board member comments. Dan, you want to kick us off this time?
I don't have any comments.
Sure, Carla?
I want to thank the board for not only listening, but stepping up and giving your honest opinion, when it's asked. Because I know that it's hard sitting here trying to make a decision, but I appreciate the fact that you listen and you actually think before you say I, which is much easier to do.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks and thank you for bringing that up. And it wasn't kvetching. It was in a good way that we had this, I think, really healthy conversation.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think we can have more of that conversation around topics, and I think frankly, it kind of helps the staff, who's trying to provide information and get guidance from us. I think the more we can have substantive discussions that provide that kind of direction helps guide them. They know what to bring to us and what not to. And I want to thank everyone for indulging my enthusiasm about circuit, and because I think it's a game changer. I think it's going to bring a lot of, mobility can really change lives for people, and it also helps businesses. There's just no downside, and you could tell by how much they're growing that every community feels the same way. So I'm really excited, and I'm bragging to everybody about how Lake Worth is getting circuit. It'd be great.
Thanks, Ann. I also think that the circuit can be great for Lake Worth. I mean, I just spent a month in Europe in 4 different countries and didn't drive a car even once. There's lots that I missed while I was there from the US, but they're so far ahead of us in transit. So I think it'll be excellent. So this is my last meeting. So I just wanted to say thank you to staff. They make us look good. They do all the heavy lifting behind the scenes. They do an excellent job preparing all the packets with the detail and all the backup. I've never come to receive my packet and been like, well, what about this? It's always there. You just have to find it. It's always there though. And I'm grateful for that. We are effective only because we have such an efficient team. I recognize excellence. I have 110 employees, and I can see the dedication and my team, and I see the dedication in this team. Most of us live in the city, and not all of our staff do, and they really take ownership of this city and really feel passionate about the work they do. And that's not teachable. That's just something that's just who they are. And so Emily, thank you. Chris, thank you. John, thank you. And David, thank you for keeping me out of trouble all these years. Collectively, I think this is 10 years that I've served on the CRA. And I look at all the stuff we've done. I drive by all the properties that we've helped and all the money that we've put out in a meaningful way. And it's been great. I've served on many boards, and this has definitely been very fulfilling for me. So thank you all, and I've enjoyed working with all of you, and I know you'll continue to do great work. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm just not on the board anymore.
I just want to say that it's been a privilege to work for you as the CRA attorney for all these years. You did take some time off, so we'll just consider this a hiatus before you reapply again. But they say time flies when you're having fun. And so I think you've had fun because the time you've been on this board has gone by very quickly. So thank you for everything.
Thank you, David. All right, motion to adjourn.
So.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.